John Fredericks, America's Godzilla of Truth. He's popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now J. Fred's picking sports. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network, John, Jack, and Nate, three guys that are pretty wise when it comes to picking winners. Football, basketball, baseball, soccer, golf, UFC battles, you name it. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins is your guide to picking winners. Before you make that play, hear what J. Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
Okay, guys, here we are. Welcome to another edition of Godzilla Wins. This is the best show you're going to find on the internet anywhere. It's got sports, it's got predictions, it's got analysis, and it's got our esteemed panel. You can't make this stuff up. Sheriff Clarke joining us, as always, from Chicago, Cubs fan. Sad situation. We got Nate Perry, college professor, University, Nevada. But on the side, Nate makes picks. He's kind of a degenerate gambler, but we're trying to keep him straight. Also with us, Patrick Assalone, former boxer, knows about MMA, UFC. He was there, was in the ring. He's got it all going on. And of course, the editor of Godzilla Wins. Go to GodzillaWins.com every day. Get all the analysis there, GodzillaWins.com, the editor of our site. And he's basically running this operation, my son in Mississippi, at the casino there in Tunica, ready to rock and roll. And he's with us, my son, Jack Fredericks, and of course, your host, Godzilla. Hey, I tell you what, we couldn't do this without our sponsors who are doing such a good job for us. And my good friend, Ignacio, if you're a small business owner struggling to generate leads and revenue, then this message is for you. In today's economy, a winning digital strategy like we have is a must. Without it, your business, well, it's going down the tubes. Many business owners struggle with outdated websites and no real presence on Google when people are searching for their services. But don't be discouraged. Ignite45.com can fix that. They design great websites to turn visitors into paying customers and create SEO strategies that rank your business on top of the search results. They got it going on. Ignite45 is also the first digital agency dedicated to the alternative economy, helping your business reach millions of patrons on Truth Social, on Getter, like we are right now, Getter Live, on Rumble, on Gab. If you're ready to see real results and work with a digital partner that shares your values, go to ignite45.com/Godzilla. Ignite45.com/Godzilla, or give them a buzz, 720-740-1776, of course, 720-740-1776. Okay, let's roll. Jack, what we got a great lineup today of things that we're going over. We got college basketball, we got the whole thing. Go ahead, Jack. Lead us off. What's on tap?
So we have a lot we want to talk about today. I'm really excited for this show. We're going to start with some NFL because we just can't quit. Then we're going to do quite a bit of college hoops. I think we all probably have some picks to give out. We'll do some rapid fire. We'll do some stories. We're calling that segment at the end, Godzilla Wins, Nate Loses, which he should have plenty of stories to talk about there. We want to start, though, with what I'm calling, or we're calling, NFL Homer Mock Draft. So the idea here is simple. You have a favorite team. Almost everybody here has a favorite team. And what I want you to do is I want you to choose their first round pick. Tell me who you think they should choose and why. Don't just say, hey, my team should pick Bryce Young, unless your team are the Texans. But based on your position in the draft and needs, what do you think they should draft? If you were in charge, who would you draft here? Why don't we start with John, my dad?
Pick me.
That's I figured we'd start there. So why don't we start there, and then we can kind of just bounce around.
This could take a while with the Titans.
I know. I shouldn't have started the show this way.
Did you just make this segment up? I love this segment.
I knew you would.
I love this segment. Nate, we're 4 minutes in, and who do I get to talk about, Nate? Say it.
Tailor-made for you, John. This is the whole reason we did it, just so you'd have something to talk about for 5 minutes.
I'm fired up about this NFL draft. April 27 to 29 in Kansas City. Titans pick number 11. Here's the bad thing about losing 7 in a row, going 0-9 to playoff teams and getting bounced out of the playoffs by the likes of Jacksonville. you get the pick in almost the top 10. We got the 11th pick. Well, Titans got a lot of holes, right? We just released 4 players. Taylor Lewan gone. Robert Woods, nice job, Robert, but you're too old. Goodbye. Randy Bullock, Fat Randy, you can't make a field goal over 38. Plus, you blew the game of the Giants. Goodbye. You're out. Zach Cunningham, you're hurt all the time. You came from Texans. They suck. I don't want anything to do with you. You're out. They saved $35 million in cap money, so they went from $23 million over to $12 million under the cap. So now we got a little wiggle room, which I'm so excited about. We get pick number 11. My pick, number O-line. Got to get an O-line here. Got to get somebody to block for Derrick Henry. Got to protect Ryan Tannehill, assuming he stays. Got to protect somebody. I like Paris Johnson Jr., Ohio State. He's going to be a day one starter. Huge guy. He can go interior. He played offensive tackle. He can play inside. You can move him around a little bit, and he's got big arms. He can block for the he can open up lanes for the run. He's also a good pass blocker. Anytime you get a O-line guy out of Ohio State, Big Ten, for that. That's where the meat is. If he's gone, then my second choice is offensive tackle from Northwestern, staying in the Big Ten, Peter Skoronski. He's a little bit quicker, but he doesn't have the size. His arms aren't as long. So I prefer Paris Johnson Jr. There you go. Titans, we need O-line. There's my picks. Number 11.
So we knew that was going to be an exciting soundbite from my dad. Let's go to the Cowboys fans here. Either Sheriff Clarke or Nate, if y'all want to jump in, maybe tell us who you think your Cowboys should choose in the first round.
I'll let Sheriff Clarke lead if he wants to, and then I'll play second on this.
All right, this will work very well because I'm going to approach this a little differently. Gather around, Cowboy fans. First of all, I think it has to start with the state of the organization. Got a couple free agents. They got to sign. Tony Pollard's one. What do you do with him? Zeke Elliott, you can't cut him outright because he'll count $16 million against the cap next year. So he said he's willing to redo his contract to give them some cap space. So that should help. I think they're most glaring, and I'll just go by position, and here's why. I won't get into names yet. I think it's a little early for that, but Nate can maybe pick up on that in terms of some names. But I look at need, and I think the Cowboys do too. They look at need. Now every year I get from the Cowboys organization an official Dallas Cowboys draft guide. This is the one from last year. This is the one from the year before, and it goes through all of the positions, regardless. It doesn't get into teams, all the positions. And then it'll rank like the top 10 from their scouting department coming out in terms of order. So that way, when the draft comes up, you look, hey, what are our needs? And I think the Cowboys' biggest need right now is they have to find another offensive weapon. The hell with free agency. They tried that route. It didn't work. They got James Washington from Pittsburgh out of free agency. I think the guy got on the field for maybe 3 games. Sure, he got injured, broke his foot. That just didn't work. Then they went to Ty Hilton around midseason, stopgap sort of thing. They couldn't find a complement to CeeDee Lamb. And what they need is someone who can stretch the field. The Cowboys do not have the ability to go over the top. Everything is to get their guy open in space. And then CeeDee Lamb, he had over 1,000 yards, 100 catches. But he's not really a burner. He's a guy who you get him the ball in open space, and he can get yards after the catch. So I think receiver is number one. The hell with free agency. Don't go out and get one of these other bums that some other team lets go. The next thing I think they have to look at is corner. They really need some help at corner. I like going with the young guys. Again, the Cowboys don't do a lot in free agency, and I like that. You end up overpaying. You end up reaching when you go the free agency route. They need another offensive lineman. Again, I'm sticking with what are their needs position-wise. Another offensive lineman, another linebacker, Van Der Esch is a free agent. I don't know what to do with him. He's often injured, plays well when he's on the field. But, Mike McCarthy, since he's gotten there, His philosophy in the draft is get younger, faster, and stronger. And if you look at some of the positions I mentioned, that's what we're talking about. Faster, receiver, younger, offensive line, stronger, defensive line. Here's the last thing I'll say about their need. They need an interior defensive lineman. They had a very hard time stopping the run last year, especially mid-season. They had to go and get that in a trade, the guy from Oakland, as a stopgap measure. So those, I think, are the needs in terms of position. If Nate wants to go with some names, we can do that. But I'll wait till the Dallas Cowboys draft guide comes out that, again, I get every year. Then I'll go through and I'll start looking at some names.
You want to be on their payroll. I never heard a better, deeper analysis than that. You want to be at what? Who's that guy that does it on ESPN? That's like agent Neil Kuiper. Kuiper. You want to be on ESPN? That was the best, deepest analysis. I mean, there you are with all the things that got going on. You get the Dallas thing. Do they still mail that out? Is that like a mailed copy? Like you get that in the mail? Do they still do that? I'm
on their mailing list. Yep. My uncle played.
They mail you out a magazine and then you pour over it for days. That you want to be on there. You want to be you want to be in draft room, wherever it is.
Yeah, I should be, because some of the stuff that they do prior to the last couple of drafts are pretty good, but prior to that, like
who's making the decisions there? Is it Jerry Jones is making the call?
Stephen Jones makes the call.
Well, yes.
Is that his son?
But Jerry still gives his input. He's the guy they got to lock out of the room. They got to lock the door before letting him in before the draft starts. Anyway, that's my look at it.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that you're right. I guess what I worry about in terms of where the Cowboys are drafting, because they're drafting 27th, I worry a little bit that maybe there won't be an elite like offensive player that they can draft. Most of the mocks I see, it looks like between 5 and 6, 5 and 7 sort of pass catchers go before the Cowboys pick, which means there's not really an elite wide receiver on the board for them. And I think I disagree in that I don't think they need it necessarily. I think that you make a run at Odell Beckham, he should be pretty reasonably priced in free agency.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
And then you have Gallup, who's going to be back up to speed coming off that injury. You have CeeDee Lamb. You got Odell, who runs clean routes. And then I think you're fine. I think that the defense needs to be upgraded. I think that they really need a cornerback spot. They need someone to play opposite Trayvon Diggs. I mean, that's like the biggest sort of need that I see. And where they are in the draft, it looks like that's probably the move. I mean, you get someone like Kelly Ringo, who's 6'2", 210. That would be huge on the outside for them. Just have someone lock up the other side of the field when Trayvon Diggs is there. That's sort of where I think they'll probably go. I think the wide receiver in offensive line are needs for sure, but I'm just not sure that unless they trade up, I'm not sure that they'll be able to get someone that they can justify in this spot from either of those positions. So I think probably defensive back is where they go. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
They need, but if I can counter that just a little bit, because we're both talking about the same team here before we get to Jack. They need more speed on the outside. Okay, that's not Gallup's forte. Odell Beckham, a locker room cancer. He doesn't have it anymore. He's coming off of 2 ACL tears. And he wants big money. Here's what it comes down to for Dallas. The scouting department. You have to find gems. You're right. When you're drafting 27th first and then 54th in the second round, you're right. The studs are going to be gone, but a lot of the studs flame out anyway. You have to find gems. Look at the Green Bay Packers with Christian Watson. They found that guy, I think, North Dakota State, for heaven's sakes, turned out to be their leading receiver. He's going to be a star. So you got to find gems. You can't always reach for these shiny objects, because that's where you can blow a draft pick reaching for a shiny object.
I mean, I guess part of this exercise is just living in reality and knowing that Jerry Jones loves shiny objects, and he will sign Odell Beckham if he can.
Oh, God, please. Please.
Yeah, that's true. We've got some Dallas fans on Getter here. They've got some suggestions. Andrea McCullough is suggesting CJ Stroud. I guess she's tired of Dak. Jason Dahl, who's a Packers fan, says they need to draft 2 to 3 good players. Let's see here. Radio Max says the Eagles need to draft a cornerback after that hold in the Super Bowl. And 138 Paul says, "What are you morons crying about today?" So thanks, Paul, for that comment there. really glad that's our brand. I would tend to agree there. So with that in mind, I guess I'll talk about the Falcons very quickly. One of the good things about Atlanta is that when you stink, you get to grab the shiny objects because you get to draft high. So there's some names here that are really kind of interesting to me. Falcons need defense. They have plenty of offense. Arthur Smith really has that offense as one of the most efficient running offenses in the NFL right now. So I'm not really worried about that. I don't see them reaching for a quarterback. I think they like Austin Ritter enough to stick with him next year and in the future. So what they are looking for is defense. They really need an edge rusher. There's 3 or 4 on the board. Where everybody seems to want to slot them is Tyree Wilson out of Texas Tech. He's big. He's like 6'6", fast, tons of speed off the edge. Really disruptive back there. It would be nice to be able to see Will Anderson from Alabama, Will Anderson Jr. fall. He's kind of the best edge rusher on the board right now. But there's a lot. Lucas Van Ness, Miles Murphy. I think I would love to see them draft Tyree Wilson, though, out of Texas Tech. Even though Texas Tech, as an Ole Miss fan, is not I'm not a huge fan of that organization, that school, because we're always playing them in bowl games for some reason, and they beat us this year.
Well, who's your pick?
Tyree Wilson. And the other thing I would say is maybe they need a defensive back. So Devin Witherspoon or Brian Branch are 2 that are kind of high on the list. I mean, they need defense, so they could pretty much draft anybody on defense, and it would be an upgrade from what they have right now. But drafting an edge rusher to complement Grady Jarrett on the defensive line and finally get some pressure. They've moved on from Dean Pease as well, so we'll see how that goes. But that's kind of
you know what? Here you come. I give you like 1 pick, right? You guys
no,
are
you
coming
didn't.
out. You got like 19 different needs of your team. Like who the hell you pick in the first round?
That's not true.
Who are you gonna pick?
You had like 5 names.
I had 2 names.
You spent your draft coverage talking about Fat Randy missing kicks.
Yeah, like I mean,
We're gonna draft a kicker in the first round, John?
No, we don't need no kickers. I don't need no stinking kicker. What good is a kicker if you can't get in the end zone? I need O-line. I need big beef. I want Big 10 O-line people. By the way, Big 12, what is going on with them, man? We got to have a whole segment on the collapse of the Pac-10, that's Pac-12, that thing. They're running out of money trying to stream things. I'm getting off topic. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's we'll save that for a different time. Patrick, I don't know if you have an NFL team, if you want to talk real quick about that, and then we can move on.
You know, my NFL knowledge fits in a thimble, so I'm going to cede my time to your dad so he can talk more about the Titans, because he only got to talk about 2 picks.
Yeah, no, we don't need any more.
My time. I'm giving it to your dad.
Yeah. Okay.
I like our team. I like our team going into next. I think we're good. Look, we need a wide receiver. We need some speed. We got a good defense. Bud Dupree, they're talking about releasing him. You know, get under the cap. It's only going to save $1 million. Bad idea, Amy. Pay him. Maybe he comes back. You know, they're talking about releasing Tannehill. Bad idea. We don't have a quarterback. Malik Willis is a joke, right? The guy shouldn't even be on the team. He can't play in the NFL. Goodbye. What we need to do is restructure Tannehill's contract, right? Let's get Tannehill there for a couple more. We got Derrick Henry. Restructure. Get under the cap. Get me a receiver. Get a couple guys in O-line. We're good to go.
Malik Willis was the 3rd-rated quarterback coming into the draft last year.
He's not an NFL quarterback. That's why Amy fired John Robinson, right? He couldn't build a roster, so she walked in his office after the Eagles. And then you get what's his name? AJ Brown popping off again in a podcast saying how Titans suck and they screwed him on the trade. He's making all this money. It's like, get over it, dude. You went to the Super Bowl. I'm sorry things didn't work out in Tennessee. I love you, brother, but I'm tired of you popping off on podcast. Then he says about how the Eagles had their whole game plan. Stupid Todd Browning didn't change it. Guess what? He got fired. Robinson got fired. Malik Willis is not an NFL quarterback. Let's move on. Stop going on podcast and talking about your tie. Go talk about the Eagles and how you could win that game, right? Talk about that. I'm sick of him.
Move on. Now I'm starting to think that this segment was a bad idea. Thanks, Dad, for some more some more commentary on the Titans there. Patrick, why don't you tell us about target trading real quick, then we'll move on to some college hoops.
Well, target trading, like we said last week, Jack, that you can come to me. I can teach you how to make money all week so you can lose it betting all weekend. Yesterday, my students were 29 wins, 8 losses, and 2 break-evens. So people would say, well, what do you mean as students? It's not me going out there picking trades for people. I teach my students how to do it. They do it themselves. And what I mean by 29 winners was not 7 people taking the same winner and counting it as 7. It's each individual unique winner. I have a method. I teach it systematically, and I give you a chance to be your own boss and not work for anybody else and have a little bit of freedom. That's what we do, Jack.
Thanks, Patrick. Go to targettrading.co for any interest in learning about the futures market and day trading. Targettrading.co. I put it in the Getter chat as well. Okay, let's move on to some college hoops here. We're going to do some rapid fire, 2 segments. The first is an homage to Sheriff Clarke, our Blue Blood segment. This will be teams that most people know and care about. And the next segment, we'll talk about the teams that I like to watch, which we'll bury a little bit in the show here. So this is just, anybody can jump in here. Tell me the games you like today, Saturday, February 25th, as we get closer to March Madness. Which games are you watching? Sheriff Clarke, you want to start us off, or does someone else want to jump in?
Let somebody else start here.
All right, I'll start. I love Oklahoma State today, -2.5 at home. Kansas State Wildcats coming in there. Oklahoma State. This is going to be a sleeper team. I'm telling you guys in this tournament. They got a lot of speed. They play defense. They got shooters on this team. They got depth, and they're at home today. Look, Kansas State Wildcats are tough, right? But these games are there's always slugfests when you get here to this point in the Big 12. A lot of evenly matched teams. So now my pick to win the whole thing, NCAA. I'll give you that when we have that segment later. I already put in that futures bet. Today, I love Oklahoma State -2.5 at home.
I agree with you, John. I like Oklahoma State too there, just to kind of cover this game a little bit more. Mostly just because the Wildcats, Kansas State, they are terrible on the road. They're one of the worst teams in the country on the road in terms of performance. They way underperform their metrics when they're away from home, and they've dropped 5 straight in league play on the road. So I also like Oklahoma State here. Oklahoma State, I think this is a good chance to sort of buy low on them. And I think this is a good chance to sort of sell high on Kansas State, to use the sort of stock terminology that we use now. So yeah, I agree with you here, John.
Nate and John picking the same team. Who's going to
Yeah,
fade us?
world.
Who's going to be fading us?
Everybody should be fading
The whole
both
world. Everyone listening on Getter right now should probably be fading us.
Yeah.
No, I got this one in the bag, man. I've been on a roll. I went to Pennsylvania. Of course, I'm in North Carolina, so you can't do DraftKings there because this is like a backward state. So I got to go to Pennsylvania, man. I went on a roll. I hit like 5 in a row. I went on a roll. So Oklahoma State, baby, -2.5. Just win the game by 3. It's all good.
Sounds so easy when you say it like that. I've certainly sat on my couch and said many, many times, just win the game by 3. That's just so easy. It happens, and they win by 2. And you throw something at the TV and say you're never going to pick another college game again. So sounds so easy when you say it on the radio, but winning a game by 3 points in college basketball just seems so difficult when you need it to happen. Nate, you got some other games for us?
Yeah, I do. So Blue Bloods. What about St. Mary's and Gonzaga? That's a game that I like. I like Gonzaga here. Mostly, I mean, in no small part just because Gonzaga always just owns St. Mary's. So that's sort of the basis for this pick in some way. But I just think they're a lot better team. Gonzaga had sort of a funky start. And St. Mary's has been playing better and better as the season has gone on. But I just think that Gonzaga is too strong offensively for St. Mary's. St. Mary's has some really good defensive metrics. They're probably inflated because they play in a pretty weak conference, like just generally. The West Coast Conference is basically St. Mary's, Gonzaga, and then more or less everybody else. who aren't very good. So you're playing the best team in the country on offense in Gonzaga. They shoot almost 40% from three. They shoot almost 60% from inside the arc. They can do basically whatever they want offensively. So I just worry that St. Mary's doesn't have quite enough firepower to keep up with Gonzaga, like they do a lot of other teams with their defense. I just don't think those defensive metrics probably will hold up as well against the best team in the country at scoring the basketball.
But didn't St. Mary's just beat them in overtime?
They did. Yeah. So yeah, and this is a huge game. This is a huge lead because St. Mary's has a 1-game lead. So if Gonzaga wins this and they're both tied at 14-2 atop the sort of West Coast Conference standings, both with a 25-5 record. So this is a huge game. I just feel like Gonzaga probably gets right here. They're at home. This is probably just a game they win. So that's where I like it.
Tell you what, Dad is really locked in. He's calling out those St. Mary's Gonzaga's head-to-heads. I mean,
that's past your bedtime most of the time.
I know that's some West Coast basketball right there.
I just love now that Jack's taken this whole company over. I'm like so fired up because he actually.
I bet you are.
Well, because you do a show rundown. Like I never did that for the first 6 months we had this thing. Right now we get a show rundown. That's pretty impressive. Plus you're running the op. Plus I just get to come in and I don't have to do anything except give you winning basketball picks, which is why I exist anyway. So great job, Jack, on that rundown.
Yeah, look, it's all about tailoring to your strengths, and I guess winning college basketball games is a new strength you've found. I've got a few that I like here as well that I'll talk about. I'm going to start with Duke, Virginia Tech. Little shout out to the Blue Devils there. I think that Duke has a real nice shot at this game. So the problem here is the spread is -6.5 if you like Duke. Virginia Tech averaging 74.5 points per game, 34.1 rebounds per game, which is actually quite a bit. Duke, 71.9 points per game, 39.2 rebounds per game. The problem here with picking this game is both teams stink against the spread. So Duke's been playing particularly well and has, I think, a shot to make some noise in the tournament, even though they had kind of a slow start. But against the spread in their last 6 home games, they're 1-5. Part of that is just the Duke line is always going to get inflated if you're not watching them every night because square bettors are just like, oh, it's Duke, I'll bet them. So they're difficult to handicap in that way. And Virginia Tech, though, they're 5-11 in their last 16 games against the spread just outright. So what I do like in this game is the over at 142.5, because I think that both of these teams are going to score points. I think that Duke is probably going to win. I just don't know if they can cover a 7-point spread against a conference.
Wait. You're betting over under on a ACC college basketball game?
Yes, I'm trying to make some money here.
Can somebody explain to me what is the purpose of that? Like, what do you sit there and like root for threes and defense, fast breaks and steal? I mean, how do you sit there for 2 hours? Hey, I'm fired up today. I'm going to get a couple beers and I bet the over on the Duke game. And hey, somebody just popped a 3. What? I mean, what is even the purpose of that?
That's what I do every day.
You guys, this really is this is a degenerate show. Maybe Patrick Assalone can save us. I mean, you got to bet the over on an ACC like classic matchup. Oh my goodness. These millennials, I don't
think it's a classic matchup, but
I said it's ACT and Virginia Tech and Duke. To steal, great. I mean, you got to pick a team. My God.
No, you don't.
Yes, it's like it's boring.
It's only boring to you. It's not boring to us. I mean, we're just trying to win. So people bet all sorts of ways. Just because you only know how to do one thing doesn't mean the entire world has to bend to your very limited knowledge of gambling here.
Give me a prop. Now you got me into that, even though I've never actually won one. Give me a prop.
I don't play props for college basketball. I don't have the time for that, but I do have another game that I'll give out here. Sticking with the ACC, Miami, they're 23-5 this year versus Florida State. Florida State's 8-20. Miami really has really come on this year as a very strong team. Yeah, they're like think they've won their last 7 games. They're just a complete team, just an absolute unit. Everybody on that team can score. They move the ball really well. They play very good defense. Florida State has had a really rough year this year. And the biggest issue with this game is their lead scorer, Matthew Cleveland, this is for the Seminoles, has missed the last 2 games. I don't know if there's really any reason or incentive to play him tonight when your season is going the way it's going. So I'm pretty certain that even with a 15.5 spread, which is the last number I saw, I'm still taking Miami minus 15.5 there, just because I think without Matthew Cleveland, I don't really understand how the Seminoles could score. And Miami is they're red hot. There's no reason they can't blow out the Noles. The spread has been jumping up. So it opened at like 11, goes up to 12, 13. So at some point you have to pick the other side, but 15.5 to me still not enough. And this is just a fun team to watch. I mean, one of the reasons I picked this game is Miami's just a lot of fun to watch right now. So if you're interested in really good college basketball, just throw on any Miami game. They're red hot right now, and I think they're going to make some noise in the tournament. They're, in my opinion, one of the best teams in the country.
That's pretty good. John, you have to understand your son is trying to crawl out of a hole in terms of his betting. So when you do that, you operate in a land of obscurity. So you find this stuff. I'm surprised, Jack, though, you said you don't have time for prop bets in college basketball, but that's because you're watching point spreads move up and down during the week. You're using your time.
That's so true.
I'm not, this is not my strong suit. When you start getting into this sort of stuff, it's what you guys do somewhat for a living. I mean, you're involved in this. Obviously, I'm a huge sports fan. I like the Blue Bloods. And for the folks tuning in today, we did not rehearse this. I got these guys to talk about the Blue Bloods, for heaven's sakes, in college basketball after 2 weeks of listening to these obscure teams and these point spreads. So I went the other way this week. I said, I'm going to show these guys that I could do more than the Dukes, North Carolina, Kentucky, Villanova, UConn and UCLA. And I looked through the schedule this weekend. I came up with 3 obscure games. So you guys went Blue Bloods, and I'm going obscure games. And I didn't write the point spreads down in this, but here's a game I think you ought to look at. First one's Appalachian State versus Georgia Southern, and I'm going with App State. I can't tell you why, but that's what I'm going with. In the second game, check this one out. Kennesaw State versus Central Arkansas. First of all, I have no idea where Kennesaw State is, but I did look and see they're in the top 25. They're like number 20.
Oh yeah, they're good.
Owls are tough, man.
This is obscene. How can Kennesaw State be in the top 25 and Duke isn't? I mean, this stuff is crazy. Anyway, I'll go with Kennesaw State because they're ranked in the top 25. That's the only reason. And here's the third game for you. Bellarmine versus North Florida. I have no idea where Bellarmine is. Maybe one of you guys can tell me because you guys drill down into this stuff. But anyway, I'll take them over North Florida. I don't know what the point spread is. But here I was going to try to impress you that I can look beyond the surface in college basketball. And I dig down deep where Jack, I'm surprised I didn't find Jack down there in my journey, this kind of stuff. But anyway, those would be my 3 games to watch.
Yeah, look, Bellarmine's 14-17. The Knights are, I think, a team that could really interest a couple people. If you're interested, they play in. Actually, I don't know where they play. Nate might know.
I think Nashville.
Nashville. Okay, yeah. So there we go.
You see what I mean? These guys are amazing. They are simply amazing with this stuff.
Nate,
as if they don't know where they play.
Yeah, well, look, I'm glad we segued into this because I have some games that are off the cuff that not everybody might know about. So I'd love to talk about those. But Nate, you've been really hot on Kennesaw State lately, haven't you?
Oh, I watched a Kennesaw State game the other day, but I can't even remember. I can't even. It's how deep we are in a college basketball season now that I just watch it and then my brain just erases and we just move on to the next one.
That was also because you were drunk, right? I mean, that plays into it, right?
That's not all right.
I mean, first of all, like, how do you even say, I'm going to watch Kennesaw State? Who do they even play in the Sun Belt Conference, right? Who do they even play? I'm going to watch Kennesaw State play, I don't know, Wofford or the Campbell Camels. I'm going to turn that game
They might have
on
been
the
playing
Camels
yeah.
network. I mean, you got to drink. I mean, there's no way you would tune that game in and just like have a Coke or like,
You know,
a
I mean, I
coffee.
do it with my coffee sometimes. I mean, it's like 9 a.m. here when those games start.
Yeah, let's give Nate a little credit there.
Yeah.
Kennesaw
It'd
said
be like
Georgia. I mean,
halftime. I have a beer, but like not like before that.
yeah. Look, also, I have a friend.
I think
Go
a
ahead.
minute here. I think we'd be remiss. Maybe you're going to go into this a little later, or maybe you're going to go into it next. We'd be remiss without talking about Alabama. And there's some betting implications there with this Brandon Miller caper, and should he play, should he not play? But we shouldn't gloss over that, because that's some serious stuff as it relates to college basketball behavior, win at all costs, that sort of thing. If you don't want to talk about it, fine, but I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. That might be an issue going into the tournament. If they finally do the right thing and suspend Brandon Miller, could have implications on seeding as well as betting.
Yeah, let's talk about that really quickly. Sheriff Clarke or Nate, if one of y'all could just catch anyone on our audience up to speed on what's going on there, then we can kind of comment on the situation.
Yeah, Sheriff Clarke is probably more authoritative than me in terms of being able to explain this sort of.
Well, only because it's a criminal matter, and I do have some experience.
Yeah,
Not because I'm involved in crime, but because of my my former profession. Anyway, Brandon Miller, University of Alabama. It's a freshman. This happened back in January. I thought this happened like in the last 10 days or so. And here, the whole story's not out. It's very convoluted. And I'm always careful when I'm opining on these types of matters when I don't have all the facts. And it's trickling out. And that's one of the problems here. But anyway, on January 15th, a teammate of his, another very good player, Brandon Miller wasn't there, but a teammate of his and another guy went down to this area where there's a lot of drinking establishments near the University of Alabama football stadium. And anyway, a fight broke out. The Miller's teammate texts Brandon Miller and says, "Bring my joint," and this comes from, a lot of what I'm saying now comes from the police testimony at the grand jury, where these guys were eventually indicted, not Brandon Miller. The joint, meaning bring my gun. Brandon Miller gets in his car, drives down to this area. These two other guys get in the car in the back seat. There's a gun back there. One of the guys steps out. Brandon Miller's car is blocking this vehicle that's trying to get out of there. And his teammate fires shots. Anyway, a young lady's killed, a mother of 5, 23-year-old woman is killed. And that's the case in chief. It's a murder trial. All right. They did not charge Brandon Miller, but he brought the gun to the damn scene, for heaven's sakes. He used horrible judgment. He didn't get charged, but the other two guys did get indicted for murder. And Alabama knew this on January 15th. We're now at what, March 23rd, 24th? And this thing finally broke because the grand jury came back. It takes grand jury a little while to decide what to issue here. And they didn't charge Brandon Miller, although they easily could have, as party to a crime. You don't have to know, but when the guy told him, "Bring my gun," and Brandon Miller does it, to me, makes him party to a crime. But he wasn't charged. University of Alabama has not suspended this guy, pending further investigation to find out that the coach the other day in a news conference came out and had some flippant remark when he was asked about it. Well, Brandon was in the wrong place at the wrong time. No, he wasn't in the wrong place at the wrong time. He used horrible judgment. They don't know all the facts. The coach admitted that. That's why he should be suspended, pending further investigation. But he let him play the other night. The guy scores 41 points, including the game-winning shot in overtime. And that's where this comes in, I think, from the tournament angle. They're ranked number 1 right now. They went out. They're probably going to be a number 1 seed. Maybe they're number 1 all in the tournament. They have a chance to win a national championship. And I think that's overriding the better judgment of people who should know better, meaning like the athletic director. The hell with the coach. It's obviously he doesn't care about this. But the university president, for heaven's sake, should say, wait a minute. Our reputation as a university is at stake here. and we're not going to put up with this. So that's the situation right now. He played the other night. He's going to play again today. I don't know. This stinks, I think, for college athletics, that this stuff doesn't really seem to matter. And just because he wasn't charged with a crime has nothing to do with it. The school can still suspend him for being involved in this. They have a student conduct policy. The team, regardless of whether he's sick, like I said, 23-year-old woman, mother of a 5-year-old, is dead. And this guy goes on like, nobody's business. And then I heard another talking head the other day. Sorry to take up so much time, but this, like I said, is very convoluted. Well, there's another talking head on another network who said, some NBA scout, because he's going to be a lottery pick. I forgot to throw that. He's going to be a lottery pick next year. He said some pro teams scouts might be looking and saying, hey, if this guy can be involved in this and still go out and block that out of his head and score 41 in the game winner, that might be a guy we want. You know who else can behave like that in the psychology world? Psychopaths can stab you to death and then go down the street and have a sandwich and a cup of coffee and then block it out and not feel any different. So I don't know. This stinks.
Yeah, I think it does stink for a lot of different reasons. As you mentioned, Sheriff Clarke, I think it's a difficult situation. And I think you're right that it's hard to, you can't, as a coach, you'd like to think that these guys would just say, hey, we've got team policies. He broke it. He's off the team. He's suspended, whatever. But we've seen in the past college coaches of all sports just they don't usually make those decisions when it comes to their career, because it affects their career and it affects their money. But the school could always step in and do something. And it seems like ESPN's reporting now that he is going to play, that the NCAA isn't going to step in either. I guess they'll just let the criminal justice system play out the way it should. But I don't know if anyone else has any thoughts.
Yeah, Jack. I've had some run-ins with the police in my life and law enforcement. I can tell you one thing. If that were me, who had actually brought a gun to a crime and said gun was used, I would be in jail. So I don't care if the kid can play basketball. I don't care if he's an A student. I don't care if he's about to cure cancer. He's part of this. I don't even see why this is a discussion. It doesn't make any sense to me. He should be gone, expelled. And if he makes decisions like that, going back to Sheriff Clarke's point about the NBA, he can just block it out and play. What else has this kid done that we don't know about? Just because he didn't get caught.
Right.
Here's another thing I looked at, because I try to dig deep into these things. The question I had was this prosecutor, the district attorney in Tuscaloosa County. I wondered where he went to law school. University of Alabama. And I wonder if that played into the decision not to charge this star player, because of course that's his alma mater from his law school. And nobody in the media asked him that. Being an alum from the University of Alabama Law School, might that have played into your decision not to charge Brandon Miller? See, everybody, they're dancing around. They go for the easy stuff, the low-hanging fruit. And somebody ought to ask that prosecutor, should you have recused yourself and maybe had some other office? And they could do that. So, a neighboring county look at this thing because you have ties to the University of Alabama. That's why I said this whole thing stinks. There's no doubt in my mind. And I wonder if the committee will take that into consideration, because if Alabama down the road goes out and does the right thing, will that impact their ability or the decision of the committee to make them a number one seed? Because they're not as good without Brandon Miller.
Well, not too much on the University of Alabama Law School. I once had a lawyer who graduated from Auburn's law school, and he was not a good lawyer. So, I'm probably everybody in Alabama has graduated from the Alabama Law School, but I take your point. I take your point there. In these southern states too, when it comes to law schools, I mean, like in Mississippi, everybody in Mississippi has a law degree from Ole Miss because we're moving to New York City, working at a white shoe firm. We kind of.
Well, I think college. Look, if I was the coach there, I'm not going to throw him off the team. But I think it goes beyond that. I think really this is the decision of the president of the University of Alabama. That's why you're president of a university, right? I mean, I think it's his decision or her. I don't even know who it is. But if I was certainly the president, just based on the fact that he took a gun to the crime, I think you got to set an example for the entire student body, right? The entire family of University of Alabama. And I think he should be suspended. I'm not sure that should fall on the coach. I think that's why you're the president of a university. You got to make tough decisions. Jack, when you were at Ole Miss, and I used to go to those games, and they got rid of Colonel Reb, and then they got rid of the fight song. I mean, I was pretty upset over that, because that's part of the culture when you do Ole Miss. And so a lot of people were upset over it. People stopped buying tickets and all that. But, that university president made that decision that he thought was in the long-term best interest of the university. That's why he's the president. So I think it falls on leadership there. And I don't think he should be playing.
Well, presidents do have to make those difficult decisions. I will say the hypocrisy of college sports. Nobody stopped buying football tickets when Ole Miss started making changes to the mascot and the fight song. So they may have said they were, but I was at all of those games because I was a student at the time. And afterwards I was a fan. And that stadium was just as full as it had ever been. So nobody stopped buying tickets because we switched our mascot from Colonel Reb to a bear. It just, that stuff it doesn't really affect the ticket prices or the ticket sales in ways that I think people think it does. And I was all in support of those decisions. Those were good decisions and hard decisions that Chancellor Dan Jones made back then. So
I never got the bear thing. I don't even know what the bear's the thing that got me. I just
it's safe.
I mean, I like Colonel Reb, baby. I love Colonel Reb. All right.
Yeah,
anyway,
I'm sure you did. The bear comes from a William Faulkner short story, who I think represents the university a lot better than Colonel Reb. Anyway, let's move on to some UFC here. Actually, Dad, why don't you tell us about Rosie's first? Let's not forget about Rosie's. Then we'll move on to UFC.
I tell you what, if you're in Virginia and you're looking for a fun time, you got to go to rosiesgaming.com. All their locations, their jackpots are just flowing. We got so many people going there, winning a lot of money. They got 5 locations across Virginia. They're in Collinsville outside of Danville. They're in Dumfries in Northern Virginia. You got Hampton in the Hampton Roads area, right by Richmond, right by our studio there, walking distance away. My favorite, Colonial Downs in New Kent, and of course Vinton by Roanoke. You're gonna have such a good time. The food is great. They've got if you don't like the slot machines, that's fine, right? Then you can go upstairs. You've got OTV, all the tracks, simulcasting, plus a sports book and all the Rosies. So it's so much fun. Look, take your girlfriend or your boyfriend, your significant other there on a date. It's going to be a fun night. Go to rosiesgaming.com, rosiesgaming.com. And for you guys out there, take it from me. Take your significant other there. You just might get lucky twice. It's all good. rosiesgaming.com.
Thanks, Dad. So we're going to spend about the last maybe 10 minutes here. We might get some story time from Nate at the very end, but we want to save a little bit of time for UFC. At Godzilla Wins, we cover all your niche sports, I should say. So go to GodzillaWins.com for all your UFC coverage, all your Bundesliga soccer coverage, Premier League soccer coverage, all those games that Sheriff Clarke covered today. We love that stuff. I had a page and a half of notes on Fairleigh Dickinson versus St. Francis Brooklyn earlier that we didn't get to. So I'm a little sad about that, but I think I do like Fairleigh Dickinson in that game. So what we're going to talk about now is UFC Vegas 70, the main event. It's about all we have time to talk about. Nikita Krylov versus Ryan Spann. This is a light heavyweight bout. 2 fighters who have very good records and very different styles. Patrick is our resident UFC expert, having been a prize fighter himself. So Patrick, I want to start here with you. What do you see in this main event matchup between these 2 light heavyweights?
Well, I see 2 entirely different styles. Krylov is a very plodding, go forward, in your face kind of guy. If you know about Fedor Emelianenko, he's got that kind of striking with his hands where he's got these, and forgive me for actually getting into it because I get very dramatic when I do this. He's got these looping, snapping punches, not necessarily straight punches, whereas Spann, on the other hand, is a straight up, elbows down, straight down the pipe, straight punch striker. And he's nasty. This kid Spann has got the reach, I believe. He's just very long. And as a fighter, he's got a better, as a stand-up fighter, he has better defense. He's much more athletic, so it's more aesthetically pleasing to watch him move, whereas Krylov is more like a bull in a china shop, where he's just going to keep coming and coming and coming, and he's not going to stop. Now, there's one thing that I can tell you about Spann, which is it's shocked me ever since I've been watching him. He sets up using his strikes to essentially get his opponent to shoot on him. A lot of people don't see that. And you don't know this unless you've been in that kind of situation. When you're getting your face pounded, you think if I go to the ground, I'm going to be safer because at least I'm not at the end of this guy's strikes getting my face turned into tapioca. And what happens is this kid has got such unbelievable Spann, I am saying, has such unbelievable shoulder dexterity, and his arms are so long, he can literally catch you in a guillotine front headlock from any position. He's tapped people out using this submission hold that most people would never, ever get caught in, much less tap out to. And he's dangerous from any angle. I think his striking is better, Spann. I think if they keep it standing up, he's just going to keep throwing straight punches right down the pipe on Krylov. I don't think the style works out well for Krylov with his looping, hooking style. But then again, I thought I knew everything last week. So all I can do is just tell you what I see. If I had to make a choice, I would go with Spann.
That's interesting because Spann is the underdog there in that fight. I guess another interesting thing you said when it comes to Spann's style is his ability to put you in a guillotine chokehold when you're on the ground and you're grappling. What I see mostly from Krylov is that he, I think, prefers to be on the ground grappling. So one of the things I think to look out for in this fight is that Spann gets submissions very quickly. If he's going to win, his fights just don't last that long. So I kind of like Krylov just because I think if he can withstand Spann's approach, especially in that first 2 rounds, I don't feel as though he can last 5. I think after 3 rounds, he might just get tired. And then if you get him on the ground, he might not have as much of that power, but he's a big lumbering fighter with a long reach. That's Spann. But that's interesting that you like him. He's the underdog in this fight. A lot of people are going to take Krylov's experience. Krylov has been in battling in the light heavyweight division for a long time. He's 4-4 since rejoining the UFC in 2018. A lot of people like Krylov in this fight, but that's interesting. I haven't heard a lot of talk about Spann on the ground. I hear a lot about his striking ability.
Well, I should say that the guillotine chokes are generally coming in transitions. So they're coming from standing. So, and which is kind of shocking because most people, you don't see too many guillotine chokes standing, but his reach he uses his reach and his dexterity so well that it's almost as if when someone ducks their head to shoot in for a takedown or they're covering up, he latches that thing on and then drags them to the ground, which then pretty much eliminates your possibility for escaping. Because if you look at many of his guillotine chokes, front headlock chokes, they're on their knees, and he's got the high position over them. He's got the high ground, and he's driving down, and it's exceptionally difficult to get out of that position.
Very interesting. Nate, you got anything?
I mean, so I think for the second week in a row, I'm the conditioning guy, I guess. I'm always worried about people's fitness, I guess. And we were worried about it last week, right? And we turned out to maybe have something on that. Right. Yeah. So the thing about Spann that Jack sort of touched on, just to throw some numbers out there, 5 fights have ended inside the first round. His last 5 fights for Spann have ended in the first round. A little over 70% of all of his fights in his whole career have ended inside the first round. So I think if you like Spann, you have to like him in the first round, right? So you may as well do something like if you're looking in the sort of exotics market, if you want to bet Spann to win, why not just take him in the first round at plus 470? Like, don't take the sort of small juice. Just take him at almost 5-1 just to win in the first round. 'Cause if he gets it done, it's got to be then, right? Otherwise, his conditioning isn't that great. He looks like a guy that slows down quite a bit after the first round, mostly just because it seems like he's not really a fighter that should be fighting at 205 at his size. He's 6'5" and he fights at 205. It seems like he has to cut a lot of weight, and it seems like it hurts his cardio. Patrick could probably, describe the sort of effects of that a little bit more, but that's what it looks like, is that he's just a guy that just sort of gets gassed early because it's just so hard on his body to cut that much weight.
And in his career, so he started at heavyweight and he just wasn't successful. And when he dropped to light heavyweight, he started winning a lot of fights. And then he took a little time off from the UFC, went to some of the regional stuff, came back, I believe. But yeah, so Patrick, that might be a good way to segue into this just a little bit. What is it like trying to cut weight? Does that hurt your cardio? Is Nate right on that?
Well, again, it's all your body type. Nate is absolutely right. If you're cutting to get down to an unnatural weight, it's deadly. I'll give you an example. When the second time that I fought for the world championship and I won, the guy that I was fighting literally at 170 dropped from 200. And he did the drop within 2 weeks because the guy that I was supposed to fight didn't take the fight. He refused to take the fight, who was the defending champion. So they brought him in. For the first round, my opponent was stronger than hell. Second round on, it was as if he wasn't even there. And of course, that's a generality. But Nate is absolutely right. If you've never cut weight and you don't understand anything about dehydration, it will kill you. And I mean, literally kill you. I've been in the hospital twice with dehydration to the point to where I thought I was checking out. And you're cutting weight right before a fight, and then you're loading up the day before. That's also terrible for your body. So if you're not a really experienced weight cutter at a weight that you train at and are used to fighting at, it's really not beneficial for you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, excuse me. It seems like Patrick likes Ryan Spann for this fight. I like Krylov, and Nate.
I like Krylov as well. But if you want to bet Spann, I think get him in the first round.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah.
And I think if you like Krylov, you might want to take a look at some of the overs of the later rounds. I think if he wants to win, he's looking for a decision there, or he's looking to go entire Spann out and get a submission in the third or fourth round. So looks like we got about 2 minutes left. We're going to need a minute for Dad to lead us out, but we have a new segment that we could probably do in about 60 seconds called Godzilla Wins, Nate Loses. And this is a segment where Nate tells us about one of his betting horror stories. Maybe it should be called Godzilla Wins, Jack Loses, because I lose way more than Nate does. But Nate, why don't you, if you got like a 40 second just clip real quick of a horrible loss from your gambling past.
Well, I mean, I don't need to look any further than this week, I think. We started our new golf podcast, Clubhouse Picks. I got all excited.
Clubhouse Picks.
I got fired up. I picked 6 guys. I thought these are some really live long shots. We're in really good shape here. I love these guys. Analysis was solid. We did an hour talking about this stuff. The tournament starts. We've now had the cut. We've had the 36-hole cut. Most of the guys, are playing in the weekend that other people have picked, but not me. I had 4 guys miss the cut. One of them finished dead last, and 2 of them are just playing out the string and tie for 38th and a tie for 60th. Or no, I'm sorry, a tie for 60th and a tie for 72nd. So really solid week for me picking golf. 6 really live long shots, 4 missed the cut, 2 are in 60th place or worse. So really good stuff from your experts here. We'll just try and bounce back next week, and hopefully the analysis is a little bit better. But
podcast off to a great start. It is nearly impossible. It is harder to pick who's going to finish dead last in a golf tournament than it is to pick the winner. The fact that you found the guy who finished last, and that was your guy to.
And I advocated for him. I wrote him up in an article.
Yeah, I know. It's in print. This guy's going to win the tournament. It is so hard to find the guy who's going to finish last unless he doesn't play. That's usually the guy who, he gets to one hole and he has an emergency. He's got to fly out to back home, back.
Got a cramp.
Yeah. So yeah, that's really, I mean, that's impressive. I didn't know you did that. Nice work there. Glad we have a podcast on golf now.
Okay. Well, guys, another great show on Godzilla Wins. I'm going to leave you with my best bet of the day, just because I know you guys probably do want to make some money and not betting golf. I love Oral Roberts -5 at South Dakota State. Oral Roberts they're really good. South Dakota State, they just don't have the speed to keep up. Oral Roberts, they play a similar game like when I coached run and gun. I like Oral Roberts -5. That's my best bet of the day. I want to thank everybody here for Godzilla Wins and Sheriff Clarke, Patrick Assalone. Go to targettrading.co. My son Jack, who's running this operation. So if you don't like it, call him, not me. And then also Nate, you pick the guy that finishes last on a golf podcast. I mean, that is like you can't make this stuff up. Like he finished last in a golf tournament. Like there's like how many people start? Like 250 people?
Like 152.
152. You can pick the guy that finishes last. On that note, folks, we will see you next week for my son Jack Fredericks, Nate Perry in Reno. I guess that's why you're in Reno. You're stuck in Reno. And Sheriff Clarke and Patrick Assalone.